So now I'd like to move then to
Item 11.
invite Byrne, if you'd like, Mr. Walsh, come up quickly and introduce.
Madam Chair, Your Worship, councillors, thank you. I think this is the 6th opportunity that the amenities have had to present to councillors in an effort to get to know them a little better, and for councillors to get the opportunity to ask questions of the individual amenities if they have questions. And also, I guess, the main reason or the main focus is for the amenities to give you a snapshot of how they contribute to Auckland, the vibrancy, etc. of the city. So, Madam Chair, I don't think I need to say much at all. We have a number of members of the board, if they'd like to stand up, just so councillors know who some of the funding board members are. And I think perhaps we'll just hand it over straight to the amenities to make their individual presentations and for them to self-introduce, if you like.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you. And welcome to all members of the RAFA board. I'd like to ask first for the Auckland Arts Festival to come forward. I think we've got David, Shona and John. Now, you know the drill, gentlemen and ladies, I'm sure. 10 minutes, we'll give you a bell at 8.
We'll be under 8.
And I should say that if you don't get any questions, please do not feel it's because we're not interested, understand or support you. The fact is that your presentation will be full in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd start by apologising for the absence of Jonathan Bielski. He's actually at a Pōwhiri this morning, welcomed the in excess of 100 members of the English National Ballet who have arrived in town. They've been welcomed this morning. And luckily the container with all the gear has just been cleared so we can actually put the show on. Some people were very nervous about that. So the Trust staged a very successful festival in March 17, programmed by outgoing artistic director Carla Van Zon, who had done a wonderful job over the period of her term as artistic director. We had close to 200,000 participants attending festival events last year, which brings the attendances overall to about 1.7 million since it was relaunched in 2003. We're expecting approximately the same numbers at this festival as ever, given that there's a large number of outdoor events, depending on the weather through the 3 weeks that the festival garden is open. We have finally, I think, firmly established this as a major annual event, and we thank the council and the other key stakeholders who've supported the audience. And in fact, the audience has more than doubled post going annual, and that is really an increase of 4 times. It's doubled and it's on every year, just to make that point clear. In 2017, we delivered a diverse cross-generational programming featuring New Zealand and Aotearoa artists. This took place in over 60 theatre venues and galleries in locations across Auckland. More than 1,000 artists took place, approximately 25% from overseas and 75% from New Zealand. We generated the second largest box office to date, with tickets starting at just $10. In fact, if it hadn't been for that weather bomb that hit us when we had the very large outdoor event in the Domain, I'm certain we would have in fact beaten that previous record. We had a wide range of free events which we're trying to expand all the time, including Whanui, White Night, Whanui Day, Antarctica at the Auckland Museum, and numerous exhibitions. And as you'd be aware, the board's governed by an experienced sort of group of board, and in fact a very experienced management team led by David and now the artistic director Jonathan Bielski. In addition to the Auckland Council support through RAFA, we received significant funding from Creative New Zealand, Foundation North, the Lion Foundation, Pub Charity, New Zealand Community Trust, Four Winds Foundation, TTCF, and corporate sponsors and individual givers, who are all key stakeholders, as well as, of course, the public. We also received support from foreign governments and embassies, depending on what we're programming, and a number of smaller funders. And these sources are crucial to retaining the scale and regional reach of the festival. 2018, the festival starts this week on Thursday. It goes a week longer than normal because we were able to get the English National Ballet, Giselle, here. That is a real coup that David and Jonathan pulled off. It's the first time this enormously successful ballet has been seen outside London. They had been approached to go to a large number of places, and we were very lucky that they agreed to come here, and in fact actually at a much lesser fee than they could have got somewhere else, which I think is a tribute really to our country and the fact that people like coming to Auckland. It also, Manifesto starts on Friday at the Auckland Art Gallery, the major art piece for the festival, and then the rest of the festival starts a week later. The reason we're going a week early with the ballet is simply that was the only time we could get them, so it was have it or not. In 2018, the festival's bringing world-class events that otherwise would not take place in Auckland, which is a fundamental part of what we're doing, as well as showcasing the best of New Zealand artists, actually helping stage productions that otherwise would not be put on. So we've got things like Giselle Headlong's 1984, which is another really major coup that really is only performed at the moment in America and in London, and Jack Charles versus the Crown, which will be a tremendously interesting piece of theatre. That man is really quite something, and I think it's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. We're getting an increasing focus on New Zealand work. The festival actually puts on more New Zealand work, more new New Zealand work than any other festival in the country. We've got from all sorts of diverse cultures that represent Auckland. We've got a strong program of work by leading Maori, Pacifica and New Zealand Asian artists, including the Naked Samoans back again, and the Naked Samoans Do Magic, which I think will be tremendous fun. Tea, which features a cast of 10 New Zealand South Asian actors, and Bless the Child, which undoubtedly will be a difficult piece of theatre. I think that you will not be able to go to that and come away probably without crying. We showcase artists from 21 countries, including Vietnam, Samoa, Spain, Belgium, France, Canada, India, USA, UK, Australia, and of course here. And we work in partnership with many of Auckland's major art organisations, including the APO, New Zealand Opera, Auckland Live, Q Theatre, the Auckland Theatre Company, Silo, Auckland Art Gallery, Te Tuhi and Pakuranga, and Te Uru and Titirangi. We're also making quite a change this year in trying to increase our commitment to making the festival accessible for all audiences across the wider city, including young people and those with accessibility challenges, through new initiatives, including some events are pay what you can. So you can either pay beforehand, you can pay before you go in, or you can pay afterwards, or pay nothing, depending on what you like. I'm trusting David, that'll work really well. We have art industry pricing so that the arts industry can go to right the full panoply of events at very discounted rates. Audio described performances for the visually impaired, and New Zealand ESL interpretive performances, and also relaxed performances. We're delivering dedicated creative learning and family programs with Junk and Earth anchored at the Bruce Mason Centre for 10 to 12 days. Anika Moa's touring to 8 centres outside of the CBD. And those creative learning programs are growing year on year, and close to 6,000 students will attend school matinees and public performances from over 100 schools from Auckland and beyond. We're bringing back Whānui, our community-based diversity project, co-funded by Creative New Zealand and Foundation North. It reaches out to many communities in difficult areas of Auckland, including 2017 Mangere, Glen Innes, Northcote, Sandringham, Henderson, North Shore and Otara. In 2018 it'll take place in Blockhouse Bay, Albany, Flatbush, Mangere and Glen Innes. Unlike the curated program, Whānui concepts come from the community, inviting Auckland to participate in the arts and to tell their own stories. We're creating a brand new festival precinct this year on Auckland's waterfront at Silo Park, and the festival programme will have sensational music, art, food and family fun. It will include a low-cost event, the House of Mirrors, which I'd recommend you all go. It's really going to be quite interesting, and ticketed and free concerts in the festival playground area. We're already well underway for the 2019 festival, the one issue with it going annually, as our staff have to work incredibly hard. That'll launch in October. We're currently work on finalising the commissioning of New Zealand work. We've locked in some of the international program, but not all of it. Partly we want to actually get through this festival and understand exactly how the economics work. As well as we're looking to return with a major outdoor spectacular in the Auckland Domain, or one of the largest stadiums, and we're working through, we know what we want to put on, we're just working through exactly how to do it. Program next year will have a focus on Toi Tu Te Reo, a body of Maori work across theatre, music, dance and the visual arts. So that probably completes what I'd like to say. Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillors, Your Worship, any questions? Councillor Casey.
I've got 3 questions. My first is, lovely to see so many venues. I count 28, but I only see 2 in the deep south, Otara and Mangere.
David?
Yeah, our focus this year is on the Bruce Mason. We couldn't find a product for the Vodafone Event Centre in South Auckland. We're looking for one for next year. But the schools from South Auckland are heavily involved in the program. And Whānui, while it's based in Mangere and in Glen Innes, draws on a much wider circle than the immediate area. That's where the projects themselves are taking place.
Which brings me nicely into my second question, which is the free events, and you mentioned them in your presentation, but 3?
It's fair to say the investment in free events has increased festival on festival. Whānui is a very big program for us now. We launched that, in fact, in the room next door about 2 weeks ago. It reached 13,000 people last time. We estimate that people involved in that project this time will be close to 15,000 to 18,000. And as you'll see, we've got a different footprint this year. Whānui is an ongoing program. In a way, it's moved on from White Night for us, which was our gallery program we went to see. This is about community engagement and the product coming from community. And we think that's a really important move for us. Down in the playground, you can go and see the Lemon Bucket Orchestra, you can go and see Perfume Genius, you can go and see Anika Moa on various days, and they're all free concerts. So we're balancing the ticketer with King Cruel and Neil Finn with the free. So it's the same experience, no charge. We can fit 6,000 to 8,000 people into that music program. And of course, schools, while we say they're from $10, there's a large number of school tickets that we actually don't charge for to make sure we get the right decile schools through our programming.
My last question is probably controversial, but I see Russell McVeigh is one of your bronze sponsors. Already councillors are asking questions about Auckland Council's relationship with Russell McVeigh. It's a serious question.
It is a serious question. We do have partner on Russell McVeigh on the board, and they do an amount of a small amount of legal work for us from time to time. There's no doubt that the issues that have been raised in the newspapers are very serious. We have not had any issue at all, as you would expect, being a client of theirs, and I think this has got a long way to play out.
So it's a watching brief on the relationship with them as a sponsor of this festival?
Yeah, they do good work for us, and the member of their partners who's on our board is an exceptionally effective board member and a very nice person. And I'm sure it's not personally tainted in the slightest by this sort of rather ugly stuff that's going on. But one has to keep a watching brief. I mean, it's...
So at the end of it, you may well review your relationship with Russell McVeigh?
We'll have a watching brief. I don't want to go too far at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I've got a comment in regards to a question that was raised by Councillor Casey, if that's okay. I just want to acknowledge the Whānui program, which we launched. Launched obviously with yourselves down the bottom, as you said, David. And I know that last year, for example, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Hills, some of our local board members actually attended that particular one. This year, I along with Lisa, hosted the Whānui launch. And there's one in particular that I just wanted to sort of share, and that is Tūhono, which is at Upper Harbour. That particular one, for those that are around that time, it's in the booklet. Please go out to have a look at that particular Whānui program, because there's a connection with the Mangere, the Toia pool complex, the pictures and drawings of the birds that are there were done by the husband and wife team that's going out to Upper Harbour. So thank you so much, and that's my comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I really want to pick up on this statement. While the diversity of AAF's audience is not yet a match with the actual demographics of the city, the progress is encouraging. Could you please explain, why you think the progress is encouraging? Because I've been to a lot of shows because I was on the local board, and I don't see diversity in the audience there. And I think there needs to be some socialising of the arts for certain groups in our community to actually attend, to go to those things.
The new scheme this year is Pay What You Can, and we're working with the Conch, who are producing Naked Samoans and the Naked Samoans, to bring audiences to a total experience at the Civic. So we're trying to remove the pricing barrier, and we're accessing those audiences through the community. That's really the key drive. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but when I came here from Wellington, it was about 91% European audience in the festival, but it's now less than 70. So we know from our research that we're moving into other sectors of Auckland, in particular into the Asian community. And a lot of the programming is being driven to, I guess, deliver to Auckland. Auckland's our audience, is our most important audience. We're not driving this as a tourism product. We want tourism, of course, but it's not the key driver of the programming. And Whānui it's a long game for us to build community engagement. Whānui's been core in that, working with Pay What You Can, working with the actual artists themselves, build up, I guess, a more diverse audience. And certainly we have that in our staff. We've got fabulous staff that represent Auckland. They're all busy putting a festival on today and rehearsing all over Auckland. We've got show rehearsing out in West, we've got tea rehearsing in the CBD, and so they're all being created at the moment. I'm not sure that answers your question, but that's...
Sort of does. So you're relying on the artists to do that socialising.
It's a very difficult to produce a quick solution on this. We're very conscious of the board about it, and we review not only the program but the results in terms of who we get there, and are continually trying to adjust and build more communities. But this is going to be a long-term issue about us finding what it is the communities want to go to, because that's actually the way it has to happen. It's not about convincing people that you should go to something I like or I should go to something you like. We've got to actually both have things we want to go to.
Good question. And last question, Councillor Cashmore.
Yes, thanks very much. I think your comments there are very, very true. So, good program. Your numbers of participation are creeping up. Your costs are also creeping up. What are your key drivers for costs? Because in most games, the more people you get, your costs per head come down. So for your expectation, the ratepayer should be decreasing. So give me some idea, please, about the cost drivers that affect your needing more money each time.
Yeah, if you take the income side, which is it's a question of trying to get the balance between putting on new work, which is very expensive, and we will never recover the money out of the audience, and how much commercial work do we put on, where we know we can broadly cover the cost of putting it on by the number of people that come. And we have a look at the amount of money we get from Creative New Zealand and others, and as well as yourselves, to say how much new work can we put on. The easiest way to actually do better is to put on less New Zealand work, as it's immensely expensive. But that doesn't actually provide the answer.
The program, yeah.
We will. Essentially, we've had a major gain in the cost drivers by going annual, because we've spread the administration over 2 festivals rather than one. Right. Well, we need slightly more than that. Then the next biggest issue is probably the cost each year of setting up either the festival playground or when we were in the square. And at some point when we've worked out exactly what it means, it's a conversation we might want to have with council about, is there somewhere that can be built at relatively little cost that can be reused by not only us but other people, because the cost of recreation is great. After that, it's literally how good we are at programming and estimating how many people come. And as you can imagine, with this close to the festival, David updates me on the sales every day.
Right, thanks. Just one that point need to be made, Madam Chair. I think that we're It is not easy to do, is it?
No, it's not.
So thank you very much to the three of you, David, Sean and Shona, thank you. And we'll officially thank you at the end of all the presentations, but I just want to give a couple of thanks.
Thank you.
I'd now call up the Surf Life Saving Northern Region, Matt and Denise. Welcome. If you weren't here, it's 10 minutes or less, and we'll ask you questions at the end of your presentation. I'll get someone to help you with that.
Tēnā koutou councillors, council officers and public attendees. Thank you for this opportunity to give our thanks and share the success and challenges of our last year. For the last 3 years, it has been my pleasure to lead this organisation as CEO, and joining me again today is Denise Bovier, one of our independent directors. Auckland's beaches are the city's treasures, internationally promoted, used by all of Auckland's visitors, and a beacon to all of its visitors. Surf Life Saving Northern Region's mission is to ensure that all of those users can enjoy Auckland's beaches safely. We achieve this through a drowning prevention strategy premised on thriving, well-supported volunteer clubs, an active lifeguard services delivery model supported by the region, and well-educated members of the public who will use those beaches. For Auckland, this means over 1,000 of your community spending their summer on the beach. They are not relaxing in the water or sunbathing though, they are the volunteers, your surf lifesavers, supported by a small team of full-time employees, here to ensure that everyone can continue to enjoy safe use of the beaches they love. These 1,000 lifeguards allow millions to safely swim, bathe, surf, fish, or explore on Auckland's coastline. To ensure Auckland's beach users are properly equipped before arriving at the beach, primary school age and at-risk demographics of the community receive affordable or costless education delivered by Surf Life Saving Northern Region to ensure they are better prepared to deal with some of the hazards we know they will confront on our beaches. Surf Life Saving in Auckland is a 90-year-old, hugely successful model of volunteers, of Aucklanders, looking after each other and working to make the city the most livable in the world. Needless to say, we continue to be a brand, symbol and service loved by all of Auckland and its visitors.
Thanks, Matt. And again, thank you for the opportunity to present to you on the movement that we're so passionate about. And as Matt's already said, we have a whole lot of volunteer members who are also incredibly passionate about what we do for the Auckland region. As an independent director for Surf Life Saving Northern Region, I can understand the challenge that some of the councillors might face in understanding the multifaceted things that we do for the region. We all understand the patrolling between the flags and the rescuing the people that don't swim between them. But there's an awful lot else that we do. It's emergency services. We're a funder for our clubs. We're an administrator. We advocate. We're providing standards and training. So it's a really huge and encompassing thing that we're involved in. A little bit of the facts, because we are here to talk about performance. So we have 10 clubs in the Auckland region, and they're currently patrolling 15 locations. Last year that was 17, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And through our community education program, we're reaching out to typically around 12,000 school children to make sure that they're understanding the safe beach message as well. We lead and support the activities of our club, and we ensure that there are strong linkages into the wider emergency response and search and rescue services. And Matt, I notice in our note we're not even mentioning things like what happened in Kaipara last year and the demands that puts on our clubs. And we're also very keen to make sure that through the standards that we have in our region, that all of the city receives a uniform delivery of service. And that's all really intended to make sure that you and your family, our ratepayers, our visitors to the region can go to beaches where they know that they can have a safe and very, very enjoyable experience. and that wouldn't be possible without the support that we get from Auckland Council.
Council representatives informed on our recent media dialogue will be well aware of the significant challenges we are presently facing. Auckland Council provides significant funding that promotes safe beach access to more than 1 million of Auckland's population and visitors, but we do not currently have the money to deliver the service we believe is necessary in Auckland. In fact, this season we have had to reduce payments to Auckland Surf Lifesaving Clubs while asking them to patrol more hours, remove traditional patrolling locations on the North Shore of Auckland, and decrease the number of the community we have offered subsidised education to solely to meet these decreases in funding. These are challenges we are happy to plan for and to respond to, but we do need your support in this, and to forge stronger working relationships with Auckland Council. Across other council relationships, Northern Regional Council, Waikato Regional Council, Surf Lifesaving have service level agreements in place that provide for consistent and annual funding amounts and agreed upon levels of service in that city. In Auckland, all funding to our service is discretionary, and though a significant sum, there's no agreement or influence as to where lifeguards should be today or in the future. Understanding how Auckland Council sees its role or responsibility for the provision of lifeguard services continues to be a critical conversation for Surf Lifesaving Northern Region to have.
So currently all of our operational funding from Auckland City is through the Arefa Act. We're required to treat this as a donation. There is no direction as to how it should be spent. However, we ensure that every dollar we receive from Arefa is spent on surf lifesaving delivery on Auckland beaches. No frills, simply the core cost of patrolling the beaches. So that's the cost of the lifeguards and their supervision, and the cost of using club facilities and equipment. This year our Arefa funding amounts to $1.266 million, so that's not an insignificant amount. But regrettably it does not cover the cost of the services that we believe are necessary for Auckland. Over the last 3 years there's been a cumulative shortfall of nearly $500,000 between the funding we have requested, and we've only requested what we need for the basic core cost of providing the service to the Auckland region. So there's a shortfall between what we've requested and what we've received. In 2016, we funded the shortfall out of our operational surpluses. We maintained that we had to keep our level of service going. In 2017, we couldn't continue to do this, and so we had to start thinking of how we would cut back on some of the service that we couldn't afford. This is something we found very hard to do because there is a demand for our service. As Matt said, the demand is increasing, and our volunteers are so very committed to what they do. And in some cases, the volunteers have stepped up into areas where we haven't been able to pay for services. But there's a limit to how much the volunteers themselves can actually do. You know, we can't be expecting them to spend all of their summer holidays working on a beach. We can't expect them to be taking time off work to volunteer to work on a beach.
As Denise said, it is clear and... sorry.
So we've got three options when we're having to look at how we balance the budget and make sure that we're giving enough service to Auckland. So we can choose to allocate less money to our volunteer clubs, and we're incredibly reluctant to do that because they're finding that the sources of funding available to them is declining all the time. So that's something we do not wish to do. As it is, 25% of our total funding we make sure passes on to our clubs. So we can cut out some of the locations from the paid lifeguards, and we've had to do that this year, as Matt's already talked about, taking guards from what we consider to be low-risk beaches so that we can continue to provide the resources on our higher-risk beaches. And we can also think about reducing the number of weeks that we provide the paid lifeguard services for. Now in 2016 we had our first dabble at this. Traditionally we'd start patrolling at some of our locations in the week before Christmas. We did this at Muriwai, and we ended up having a midweek drowning that we would normally have been there to cover. This year we've tried to, as I said, juggle the budget by pulling some of the weekday patrols from the North Shore to make sure that we have them on the West Coast beaches where it's more risk. So, you know, we're very aware of the limited role that Council has in influencing the AREFA funding process, and we know that Council staff have made recommendations on the funding we receive, but our plea for critical funding has not been met. The funding shortfall for 2018-19 is $287,000, unless, of course, we're successful with our appeal. And we need that funding now more than we've ever needed it. And we actually find it's quite unconscionable at a time when the public is demanding more support from us, that the funding board has actually chosen to pay back $350,000 of their levy. Our directors do feel that Surf Life Saving are being denied critical funds that impact on the service we deliver the city. So we're just going to get the positive side of the story now, and we're here to look at our performance of what's happened this year. We've continued to... Sorry?
You're out of time, so can you just kind of...
We'll be very brief. So we've actually managed to reduce, again, the drownings per capita in Auckland are down, and it's the lowest for New Zealand. We've delivered longer patrol hours at high-risk beaches. We're increasing the number of our volunteers, and that's a trend against the trend in New Zealand, where people are really struggling to get volunteers. We're lifting our health and safety standards through a dedicated program, and we've become Safe Swim ambassadors and helping to roll out that for council. And I guess the thing that we're not so happy with is with our education that we think has been so important. We haven't been able to subsidise that as much, and we've seen that's had a direct correlation with fewer people from the at-risk demographics actually coming in and participating in our beach education programs.
Outside of these challenges, we continue to be grateful for the trust and partnership you have extended to us. But as it's one of the few occasions we have to present to council leadership, we wanted you to understand the critical nature of our funding challenges. We have been accurate in our projections and forecasts of need for greater support since 2012, and we don't want to get to breaking point before we have discussions around a solution. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time here today and your ongoing advocacy.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions or comments? Councillor Cashmore, Councillor Cooper. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Denise. A real quandary. So we've got a graph of your costs and the gap rising rapidly. So what are you doing extra that's causing those gaps to rise over and above the population growth? So what extra things have you been required to do or been asked to do by other sources?
So one of the main contributors of the AREFA grant, which we choose to put it to because it's discretionary, is a Monday to Friday lifeguard service. Minimum wage changes have caused increases there. Changes to health and safety laws now require us to give all of our employees uniforms, lifeguard uniform, wetsuits, fins and other equipment which they personally own. So costs have increased through that area. We have further health and safety obligations to our volunteer clubs, so we're putting on projects, workshops to deliver that, and that's to the value of $120,000 per year. Additionally, we're trying to increase the grants to our clubs. As you would have seen in the media this year, they're patrolling more than ever. They need more financial support because they have the exact same financial problems we have in seeking grant funding. For council's knowledge, over 20% of the funding for our organisation comes from 30 gaming or grant funders. That is at risk. 36% of our funding continues to be at risk. That means we don't know if we get it year to year, and that's very hard to run such a critical service against.
Follow on from that, Madam Chair. So the gaming machine numbers have dropped over 30%, I believe, over the past 5 or 6 years. That's causing you a bit of a crash in your pricing as well. My other question is, the funding from the Crown, do you get anything from the Crown or Public Health?
No.
So in terms of gaming, we work very hard and we actually do well in that space. When everyone else is falling by the wayside, we're increasing our gaming and grant funding, but that's only good news in the short term because it's not going to last. So it gives us a bigger hole to fill. And if 33% of our current income comes from gaming funding and that drops, that gives us more income to find. And the conversation we're trying to lead is that we need more sustainable funding, but we don't know who that's going to come from yet. There's no one responsible. We're not like a district health board or an ambulance service where someone's there to provide that. Leading on to the Crown question, we get zero government funding. That's for any of our work. We're working on innovations in that space to support councils and ratepayers in delivering our service and capital costs.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Just a couple of questions, if you'll indulge me, Madam Chair. So your service is 365 days a year?
So we provide a 365 drowning and community education response, with lifeguards being on the beach from Labour weekend to Easter on the weekends as volunteers, and from the end of November to up until this is our last week across Auckland's beaches, and that's all objectively driven. No other voice in that conversation in Auckland apart from Surf Lifesaving at this moment. We're trying to engage Auckland Council to have a further leadership role in where those services are, and would welcome you to that table.
And the other thing, you are getting more volunteers, but how do you fund training those volunteers? And are you having problems with retention or?
So we continue to have more volunteers and to need more capable or skilled volunteers. Volunteers aren't costless. All we are saving the city is the labour cost, and every volunteer that signs up, we have to pay for the training, the uniform, the administration of that volunteer, which is a significant cost when we have 6,000 in the region alone.
And just the last question, Madam Chair, we hear in the media, is it the community's expectation that you be there pretty much all the time? Because we're hearing these comments that your guards are being abused if they actually want to go home.
So we are facing unprecedented demand, but the city hears that from a lot of organisations at the moment. We're aware of that. We don't let the tail wag the dog in that sense, so the volunteers know what their supported levels of service are, and we actually generate our grant funding to those clubs in this last year on what those recommended levels of service are. Lifeguards have hundreds of thousands of interactions with the public every year, and 99% of those are positive, and I think that's what we focus on. The abuse is few, far between, and intolerable, and I suppose we provide support to those volunteers where they feel they are being challenged by the public.
Thank you.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for you, Matt. Just picking up your comment about the removal of traditional patrolling areas, particularly in the North Shore. This is obviously happening at a time when there's increased intensification, i.e. bigger population growth and more people going to the beach. So what's the practical effect of that? Because I think of a place like Browns Bay, for instance, which is often regarded as a kind of safe beach, but there's been drownings there. So what are you noticing as a practical effect on the ground of those removals?
So we're triaging here, guys. We do not have the resource to deliver to the current traditional service levels. This year we were faced with a challenge, and we had information telling us we needed lifeguards at Piha and Muriwai for a longer period of time, and it's worked. It's been very successful putting them for that longer period of time. We were already projecting a $70,000 financial loss for this year, so we couldn't put paid lifeguards Monday to Friday on Milford and Browns Bay without an increase from that funding source, which is currently a RAFA. So we had to make the decision at what was essentially short notice following the appeal, and then we got to find gaming and grant funding and anything else we can do to fill that space in August of this year. What it meant for us was a very unhappy community, a large amount of media scrutiny, and of course an increased drowning risk at that location. And whether we say that the location's physically safe, there's an aged population in Milford who enjoy swimming at that beach. They get helped into and out of the water from the lifeguards, and they enjoy the swimming because they're monitored. So no, it's not Piha, it doesn't have as high a drowning risk, but it was important to those ratepayers that that service was there, and I think there is a need for it.
Right, thank you very much, and there's no doubt that you do a great work in our community, so thank you for that. You'll be thanked officially at the end. I'd now call upon Callum Gillespie, please, from the Coast Guard Northern Region.
Good morning, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the Council. Thank you very much for welcoming us here today. And I'm joined today by Neil Bradley, who's Director of Coast Guard Northern Region. On behalf of Coast Guard Northern Region, thank you very much for Council's important ongoing support and for your invitation for us to return and brief you on our performance over the last 12 months. The role of Coast Guard Northern Region is to enable our region's residents to make the most of the marine environment safely and with confidence, and to assist people on the water should they strike difficulty. All of the region's population enjoys the fruits of our waterways in one manner or another, and I believe that Coast Guard plays an essential role in making our harbours and coastlines a vibrant environment for businesses and for recreation. So over the next 10 minutes, I will share with you my view on how Coast Guard Northern Region is performing, talk to our challenges and the strategies that we have in place to meet them. To provide a very quick recap on the role of Coast Guard, we are the charity Saving Lives at Sea, and we do so by providing 24-hour a day, 365-day a year search and rescue and recovery services for people in difficulty on our harbours, rivers and the coastline. We own and operate a VHF communications network that enables boat owners and operators to keep us informed of their movements, and so that we can provide information services such as weather, information and other services, and to enable Coast Guard, police, surf lifesaving, Westpac helicopter and other services to undertake responses when they are required to do so. And finally, we seek to educate the boating public so that they can enjoy and benefit from our great Auckland Region's environment. Coast Guard Northern Region is a registered charity and a lean organisation powered by approximately 1,000 volunteers and only 23 full-time staff. The region is served by 14 volunteer units from Waiuku in the west to Kauau in the north. In the last 12 months have been both challenging and rewarding for CNR. On the water, Coast Guard has seen a small annual increase in the number of search and rescue and other tasks that we've undertaking approximately 1,930 calls for help and assisting more than 4,000 boaties in that period, the majority of which are in the Auckland region. As Aucklanders seek to make the most of this interesting tropical summer that we are experiencing, Coast Guard staff and volunteers are doing what we do best. We're teaching boating safety and skills in classrooms and venues around our communities. We're taking trip reports and bar crossing reports as we watch the backs of Aucklanders, and we're on the air and on the water providing assistance where necessary. In the last 2 months alone, Coast Guard Northern Region has undertaken 626 Coast Guard operations and 86 search and rescue events involving more than 180 people. Those numbers have increased since last year by 14% and 26% respectively. And these increased number of SAR events have followed the same trend as in the previous year. These are events such as the search for William Raurangi and his 8-year-old daughter on the Manukau Harbour in April last year. I'm sure many of you will recall that William drowned on the Manukau, but thankfully and miraculously his daughter, who was 8-year-old, was recovered by Coast Guard having trodden water for 3 hours. She was pulled from the water by Papakura Coast Guard, who searched for her and her dad alongside Coast Guard's units from Titirangi and Waiuku and watched over by the Auckland Air Patrol. In contrast, and more recently, the volunteers of Auckland Coast Guard demonstrated their capabilities when on 19th of January this year, they medevaced a passenger from the cruise liner Norwegian Jewel in dark and stormy conditions in the Rangitoto Channel after the Jewel had left Auckland following its stopover. These two incidents, I think, highlight the contrasting nature of the roles that we fulfil, most often working in the interests of Auckland residents, but also undertaking tasking related to our Auckland economy. In each and every case, our response is a team effort, coordinated by the staff and volunteers in the Northern Region Ops Centre and Mechanics Bay, and then responded to by volunteers in rescue vessels or search aircraft. Our people, and in particular our volunteers, are our greatest single asset. On average, a volunteer gives approximately 15 hours a month to Coast Guard, and it takes on average a year to progress through the varying levels of Coast Guard from trainee to operational and eventually on to master of a rescue vessel. They are our greatest asset as well because of that status, volunteer. As Matt said, saving us millions of dollars per year in labour costs, but they still don't come free. Across the Northern Region, however, we estimate that we are approximately 250 volunteers short currently, less so in our well-populated areas, and more so in communities such as Helensville and Great Barrier, where in Great Barrier the husband and wife police officers are also the husband and wife rescue vessel masters. At Coast Guard Northern Region, we have a clear strategy, and we identify recruiting, training and retaining our volunteers as our most pressing challenge currently, and therefore the focus of an increasing slice of our energy and financial resources. As you know, we work hard under the adage that prevention is better than cure, and in early February this year, we concluded this year's Old for New life jacket campaign. Many of you will be familiar with the campaign, I believe. Old for New is an initiative started and managed by Coast Guard Northern Region. We've just completed our 4th year running the campaign, and this year we've extended the campaign nationwide. In the Auckland region, we run these ever popular events at 7 locations and traded close to 500 life jackets. At these events, we aim to take dangerous jackets off the market, but our 2 travelling ambassadors, who you may have seen on 7 Sharp a couple of weeks ago, also recognise that people of all means turn up, and we seek to do our best by them each and every time. These events are thought-provoking to attend. In December this year, I attended the event at the Te Atatu Boat Club. Through our partnership with Hutch Woco, we are able to provide about a 40% discount on the normal price of a life jacket, taking down the cost of a good quality life jacket to about $69. But there I met a couple who, with their kids, just wanted a couple of new life jackets. And when they realised it was $138 for a pair, they prioritised, I think, their day-to-day expenses over the likelihood that they would find themselves in the same circumstances as Mr. Raurangi on the Manukau Harbour. In a similar preventative vein, we continue to run our bar crossing safety courses. This weekend just past has been a pretty hectic weekend on the water. Some of you will know that it is marlin season at the moment, and Coast Guard volunteers and staff were turned to this weekend watching the backs of boaties, particularly going out on the west coast, in pursuit of the elusive fish. To date this year, we have educated approximately 180 attendees on bar safety crossing courses with the skills and insight to cross those bars more safely. And we do so using through the mechanism of a 2 or 3 hour free seminar. The result of this is an increasing number of boaties taking the time to make a report before crossing a bar and being better kitted out to do so. Across the northerly boundary of Auckland region, we celebrated a milestone last year with the move to operational status of our newest unit at Tinapai. This is of course relevant to this forum as we strengthen the capabilities on the treacherous Kaipara Harbour. Alongside the addition of a second unit on the Kaipara, we're currently assessing the best means of improving bar safety education for the increasing number of Auckland boaties launching from locations such as Shelley Beach. Turning to performance excuse me, off the water, Coast Guard Northern Region is not an organisation that is standing still. Far from it, in fact. While much of what I've said will be familiar to you, we are an organisation that is transforming. As you may know, CNR owns all of the VHF infrastructure that we use, in total 28 VHF channels and nowcasting stations. That network was created organically and is linked with a variety of VHF, microwave and internet links. Historically, that network has been maintained hand to mouth, and that can result in channels going down and failures. An example of that would be the fact that Coast Guard Northern Region does not have consistent access to the primary distress frequency, channel 16, across the entire region. But next month we expect to enter into partnership with New Zealand's state-owned broadcasting company Cordia, transforming our network design to be based around a fibre optic network and managed with a high-quality service level agreement. Staying on the theme of digital services, we know that we need to move with the times, keep abreast of the ways in which boaties want to consume information and access services. And that's why in the next couple of months Coast Guard Northern Region will launch the next generation of Coast Guard app. enabling trip reports to be done online in a way that is more accessible to boaties. Finally, just touching on finances. For the year ending June 2017, CNR posted a consolidated surplus of $265,000 against revenue and expenses in the order of $5 million. We continue to work smartly to improve our membership offering as the single largest income source, bringing in approximately $2 million per annum, as well as strengthening our fundraising capability. We're grateful to Auckland Council and AREFA for the $712,000 we have received this year, while our grant request for the year ahead seeks $764,000 as we look to lift recruiting and training activities to meet the volunteer challenge I mentioned. As many of you will know, the Auckland Marine Rescue Centre is the home to Coast Guard, Surf Lifesaving, the Police Metro Team and the Harbour Master. All of the occupants are struggling with current constraints of the building and its watertightness. And in the last year, stalwart efforts have been made to find a low-cost solution with little success. As a consequence, it is expected that the Rescue Centre Trust that owns the building will make an application through the LCP process for council support in the year ahead. In conclusion, I'd like to thank Council for the support you provide us. The popularity of the coastline shows no let-up, and CNR continues to deliver what is asked of it. We greatly value the support that Council provides, and I hope that through the course of this briefing I've given evidence of the many ways in which we safeguard the population and of the prudent manner in which we treat our ratepayer dollars.
Indeed you have, gentlemen. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Cashmore? Councillor Darby?
Thanks very much, and gentlemen, thank you for the work we do. We all see the headlines where your teams have done sterling rescues out on our harbours and in the briny, which causes us great relief. Thank you. My one day of fishing this year with my son over the Christmas break was an education, because he had his radio on the whole time. And every call was about a breakdown. Propeller fell off, out of fuel, motor broke down, this sort of stuff. Is the percentage of your call-outs, what is that breakdown figure, and do you cost recovery off those?
Yeah, thank you. We have approximately 23,000 members in the Northern region, and they bring in, as I said, approximately $2.1 million in subscriptions. In addition, when we assist non-members, we conduct a cost recovery exercise, and in about 75 to 80% of those occasions, we recover our costs.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Darby.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just in terms of the issues that you have at the Rescue Centre building with the water tightness, what sort of quantum of numbers are you looking at for the remedial works there? At what stage are you? Have you lodged a claim, or is it outside of that process?
It's outside of that process. The building's 25 years old.
It's aged.
It's managed by a trust. We conducted detailed work last year to understand the likely cost of that. It ranged from between $3 and $6 million at that point. There will have been inflationary effects since then, but that's the kind of quantum we're talking about.
Okay, and the trust owns the building. Does it also own the land?
No. The land is, the majority of the building sits over the water and is on a resource permit, and a small footprint on Ports of Auckland land.
Do you have security of tenure?
Yes, we have security of both of the leases that we have been recently renewed.
Recently renewed. Okay, thank you. Cheers.
Right, thank you. Member Wilcox.
Yes, thank you. Just with regards to the Kaipara, do you do both the northern part, the Auckland part, as well as the northern part? Is that correct?
Yes, we do the lot. There are 2 units on the Kaipara, one at Helensville and the new one at Tinapai.
Tinapai. So did that funding for that come from the Northern Regional Council? Or?
Northern Region, excuse me. Northern Regional Council have stepped up in the last 2 years and are now starting to provide some emergency services funding to Coast Guard Northern Region. But the quantum of that is $85,000 per annum at the moment.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Well, thank you, Callum and Neil. No doubt that you do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd now ask Lester, Lyndon and Gordon from the Auckland Theatre Company to come forward, please.
Madam Chair, Your Worship, councillors, thank you for the opportunity of presenting to you today. 2017's been a milestone year for Auckland Theatre Company. It's the first full year that we've been at home at the ASB Waterfront Theatre. We couldn't have built this without councillors' support, so we're extremely grateful and thankful that for the support that you've given. Over the last year, we've issued 96,000 tickets to events at the theatre. These included our own subscription season of 6 plays, highlights being Amadeus by Peter Schaefer with a live band on stage, and When Sun and Moon Collide by Briar Grace Smith, directed by Rory Paratine. Hawaii 2's Te Manua as part of Matariki in the middle of the year, 89 screenings as part of the New Zealand International Film Festival with a special focus on New Zealand work and filmmakers, and seasons at the ASB Waterfront Theatre presented by the Royal New Zealand Ballet, Auckland Arts Festival, New Zealand Opera Black Grace Dance Company and the Amici Trust. We also hosted concerts by Dave Dobbin, Lloyd Cole and a commercial season of The Play That Goes Wrong. The Villa Maria Gallery on level 2 is proving very popular for meetings and community events, and we hosted a number of conferences in the theatre throughout the year. Highlights in the Creative Learning Program included 2 regional tours to primary schools, Maui Me Te Rā and The Adventures of Rama. These are hugely popular with teachers and students alike, supported by a comprehensive curriculum-based workshop program. The Here and Now Youth Arts Festival took over the ASB Waterfront Theatre last April with a range of work created by, with and for young people. In 2017 and 18, we're looking to build on the achievements of the previous year. We have an ambitious target of delivering 450 event or activity days and are aiming to exceed our 2017 audience target. Core programs include the subscription season of 6 plays, where at least 2 plays are by New Zealand playwrights. The program also includes a new production of Mrs. Warren's Profession by George Bernard Shaw, reimagined with a contemporary New Zealand setting, and The Cherry Orchard by Anton Chekhov, reworked with Tainui Tukiwahu and Albert Belts, along with homegrown popular musical to finish the year. We're producing Still Life with Chickens by Tongan writer David Marmia, starring Garetti Chadwick as part of the Auckland Arts Festival at the Mangere Arts Centre, as well as in the CBD at the ASB Cube, and we're partnering with the Auckland Arts Festival to present the internationally acclaimed production of 1984 by George Orwell. Creative Learning Program provides free and low-cost events for approximately 20,000 young people, including across the region, including school matinees, teacher programs, free online education resources, the annual Youth Arts Festival, and 2 in-school touring shows as part of the Mythmakers program. This year, one of the shows we're touring is The Eel and Senna by John O'Su-Choon, which we're currently in rehearsal and is about to go across the region. Our literary program continues to be a powerhouse for the development of new New Zealand work for the stage, with play readings, commissions and mentoring for up-and-coming playwrights. Finally, our partnership program brings all manner of events and performances to the ASB Waterfront Theatre, or as a way in which we make our facilities available in Balmoral to independent artists working to present productions in other parts of the city. Our major areas of focus for 2018 and 19, well, I guess we're in the business of delivering big-hearted stories that matter to the people of Tamaki Makaurau. Next year, we will start to roll out the initiatives and developments which have been identified as part of our 5-year strategic plan. Specific focus includes building on our role as an anchor cultural institution in the Wynyard Quarter, developing the program and culture of the organisation to reflect the changing face of Auckland both on stage and off, investing in new works for the stage which can be developed for presentation in 2019 and 20, developing business models and strategies to grow and engage with new audiences, progressing our Māori partnership and Pacific engagement strategies, Alongside this, we're bedding down operations at the theatre, and this will be an ongoing priority for us in terms of the number of event days we achieve, which is critical for us ensuring ongoing sustainability of the facility. Commercial promoters, corporate events and community-based cultural performance groups are a key focus for the coming year, as well as making and presenting great theatre. Contributing to the objectives and goals of the Auckland Plan is an overarching priority for Auckland Theatre Company. Integrating arts and culture into our everyday lives is a key goal that Auckland Theatre Company contributes to, and a responsibility we take seriously as we plan for the future. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank Council for your ongoing support for us in being able to move forward in achieving those goals. And I'd like to hand over to Gordon Moller, our Chair.
Just briefly, in January we had a strategic day with our governance board and our senior staff, and covered a whole series of issues for us over the next 5 years. There's no doubt that it's been a more complex project to open the theatre. We've been in operation for a year and it's been very successful. Also our operation at Balmoral, but also the fact that we play in our own theatre for 25 weeks of the year, and the other 25 we let it to other bodies. And as Lester has said, we've had great success with the film festival. We put in a state-of-the-art projector and played to a large number of people over a number of performances. But in this strategic review, it was just to say what are our plans for the next 5 years, and it's to really respond to the change that Auckland is going through. We're aware of many, many areas of discussion around our communities, in the groups that you've heard here today, in the groups that we engage with, in the communities, in the various parts of Auckland. And it is a changing city, it's a growing city, and we're quite determined to make sure that the programs that we run, the schools, our schools programs, we presently go to 12,000 students in the schools and other similar activities, our work in Mangere that we've done in the past with the Mangere Arts Centre, and the work on the waterfront is all things that we feel very strongly about, and our board certainly is committed to doing it in a financially viable way. And I think in our submission for the funding this year, we were very careful to make sure that all our budgeting is robust, such that when we seek funding from not only Auckland Council through the funding board, but also from Creative New Zealand and our other supporters, that it's well founded and that we can continue to be a strong and viable organisation. We're in our 25th year, and certainly we've managed to do that over that period of time. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions? Councillor Casey.
In the report, you talk about your new, or rolling out your Māori and Pacifica engagement strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just give us a flavour of that? What's the main tenets of it?
The main tenet of it is as our mana whenua advisor said to us, you know, it's not an engagement, as far as Māori concerned, it's not an engagement, we're married. So the approach really has been a whole of organisation approach in terms of how we operate, how we welcome people to the theatre, the manaakitanga that we offer, and then from that we've also developed we're talking to a number of strategic partners about creating and making new work. The most recent discussion that's been taking place is with Te Pou out in West Auckland, which over the last 2 years has developed as a Māori home for theatre, about ways that we can develop and support each other, with them being an incubator and us being a main house theatre, and how we may be able to work together to mentor and develop. So that particular strategy, once initially drafted by the organisation, it went out for consultation. So we talked to particular artists, we talked to some of the mana whenua that we work with, and from that a range of projects is being developed. So it's a whole of organisation one. The Pacific engagement strategy is more specific, and that it is recognising that we're dealing with much greater diversity of communities here, and so the strategy that has been developed in that respect is, both of them are using existing models, but this one is using the whānau whālei model. And the pillars of that really are around investing in talent and investing in audiences. So in that particular instance, it has also gone out for consultation, and from that, There's 5 projects which are in development that will see their way to the main stage. It's very exciting for us.
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Thank you, Lester and Gordon. I'm just curious about the 12,000 students that you reach out to in schools all across Auckland, especially given how constrained a number of schools often are. Is that a combination of going out to the schools themselves and bringing them into the new theatre? How does that exactly work?
It's a mixture of both. The total number of young people is actually 20, and so it breaks down into various aspects. So there's various aspects to it. So we go out with primary school tours that actually happen in schools. We run a comprehensive school matinee program where they're coming into the theatre. We have an ambassador program, we have a mentoring program, we have our Here and Now Youth Arts Festival. It's a multi-layered program of which encompasses a whole lot of elements. One of the things, the focus, the change that we've developed in recent years, and thinking about what our role in this space is that we recognise that creativity is a cornerstone of innovation, and creativity is a cornerstone of leadership. So the programs that we're doing, whilst some of them are curriculum focused, there is also one which is about unlocking potential of creative thinking, because they are the skills that even if people won't connect with theatre going further forward, that will create great citizens of the future. So that's the focus that we're working on.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. I read a lot around the diversity, and it's kind of supplementary to both questions that have been had. I'm interested, firstly, in your outreach to Asian communities, and then when thinking generally around the diversity with which you're advancing and trying to see, how that filters through both at board level and in staff, as well as just what manages its way to the stage.
That has been identified, in terms of staff, it has been identified as a priority for the organisation, and so that came up in the strategic review, and so that is at the front of our thinking about future recruitment. In terms of board, we've had several new board members join us in the last year, Isaac Hikaka being one, Vivian Bridgewater is another one, and so those issues are at the forefront of our discussion around the board table as well.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to ask the same question, how you reflect in the changing Auckland and your leadership, but you've answered it. I will take the opportunity, though, to comment and to thank ATC. My community patrols were one of the groups that received free tickets, and that was the first time some of our volunteers had been to the theatre. It took a while for them to get used to what was going on stage. It was not something they see very often, so thank you for that opportunity. But again, really good to see your leadership reflect the diversity of Auckland, because you have a mana whenua culture advisor. If Pacific and Asian are important audiences for you to tap into, how will that be reflected in your leadership?
Yeah, we agree.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, and that was a very good presentation. I'd now call to the table from Stardome, David and Melissa.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Mayor Goff, councillors. My name is David Holdsworth. I'm the Chief Executive of Stardome, the Auckland Observatory and Planetarium. It's my great pleasure to have this opportunity to update members of the Finance and Performance Committee about Stardome. First, I'd just like to introduce Melissa Blue, who's our Chief Operating Officer. In addition to other roles, Melissa is responsible for our education programs. And given the significance of education at Stardome, I thought it would be great to have Melissa here to answer any questions you may have about this very important part of our activity. As many of you may be aware, most major cities around the world have a planetarium as part of the cultural fabric of that city, alongside their museums, art galleries, zoos, etc. Auckland is particularly fortunate in having not only a world-class planetarium with leading-edge technology, but also a publicly available astronomical telescope and an internationally recognised astronomy research facility co-located on the slopes of Maunga Kea, one of the most iconic volcanic cones in our city. This last year has been a particularly significant one for our organisation, as Stardome celebrated its 50th anniversary last March. During our time at the foot of Maunga Kea, the observatory has evolved and developed as an experience, including the introduction of a 360-degree planetarium in 1997. As I speak to you today, we have just completed a major upgrade of our planetarium. We have installed 2 new laser projectors which will deliver high contrast 4K images on the dome and will also result in significant operational cost savings, as we will not have to continually replace the lamps, which cost over $2,000 each. At the same time, the technology that runs our planetarium has been upgraded and will provide significantly more astronomical data to include in our night sky shows. The planetarium is definitely a highlight of a visit to Stardome and allows us to offer a memorable, fun and educational experience. Stardome opens its doors 7 days and 6 nights a week, and over the course of a year has over 160,000 visitors. As I said, education is a very important part of our activity, and in 2017 we welcomed over 48,000 students through our education program. We strive to engage and connect students to astronomical concepts and ideas. We take into consideration the interests and needs of each group, creating a tailored experience. This approach allows us to put students at the centre of teaching and learning. In 2017, Stardome was ordered a new LEOTC contract by the Ministry of Education, which allows us to subsidise the entry cost to students, keeping us in line with other amenities throughout the region. We were disappointed that no increase in funding was received from LEOTC due to the constraints on funds that the Ministry has to distribute. However, it was noted that as an organisation, Stardome far exceeds its targets. We have had overwhelmingly positive feedback from students and teachers, and our innovative programs and teaching are held out as an example to other providers. In the coming year, we'll be focusing our efforts on some exciting collaborations with organisations such as Auckland Philharmonia and Rocket Lab, as well as continuing our ongoing relationships with the Cornwall Park Trust and the Mangere Mountain Education Centre. Our passion to share our knowledge of space and breaking down barriers to visitation has seen the development of 3 programs: our Low Decile Scheme, our Southern Initiative Scheme, and most recently, our Outreach Program. With support from Regional Amenities Funding Board, we will continue to run these programs focused on reaching some of the less fortunate children from within our society. Our Low Decile School program allows children from decile 1 to 4 schools to attend a Stardome education session for a heavily subsidised cost of $2, which includes both the entry charge and the bus fare. In the last financial year, over 14,000 children from Auckland's lower decile schools attended Stardome under this arrangement. The second is our Southern Initiative program, which is directly inspired by the Auckland Plan's Southern Initiative and allows children from various community groups from South Auckland to visit Stardome free of charge. We're pleased to report that last year over 3,000 students visited us as part of the program. The third program is our Outreach program, where our educators go out to schools whose students are unable to participate in our other programs. This program has allowed us to reach over 4,000 students in the past year. Regional amenities funding has meant that the Stardome education program can reach students in some of the lower socioeconomic areas of Auckland and has allowed over 85,000 children to benefit from our education programs who would otherwise not have had this opportunity. In addition to the planetarium, the Stardome experience includes an astronomy and space-themed gallery and exhibits area and a publicly accessible observatory with our large Zeiss telescope and smaller courtyard telescopes available to the public with most of our shows. Last year, we introduced 2 new displays which continue to rate highly with our audience and have blended into our education programs beautifully. In 2017, we hosted our first astrophotography exhibition in collaboration with the Auckland Astronomical Society. We displayed 45 beautiful images taken by amateur photographers and over 60 more on a screen-based display. This exhibition was viewed by over 3,000 people at Stardome before going on to Waiheke Island and Great Barrier Island. In February, we built on this concept in line with the recent lunar eclipse event and created a moon exhibition which ran for a week and was again viewed by more than 3,000 people. These exhibitions allow us to keep our displays fresh and relevant while remaining and will remain a focus for us in 2018 and into the future. In January 2017, we adopted a nominal entry charge for visitors not seeing a planetarium show. We set these prices at a modest $2 for adults and $1 for children. The public have been very supportive, and the anticipated drop in attendance did not occur, and we earned over $20,000 for this in the past year. Our public program schedule remains a very popular event, and events such as Valentine's Night, Mother's Day, Yuri's Night, and May the 4th, all being celebrated and linked to our love of space. Matariki is by far our most celebrated event and is most certainly our busiest time of the year, both in public and our education programs. The development of our special Matariki Dawn Show has allowed us to not only describe the astronomical aspects of this special occasion, but also the cultural meaning behind it. Our partnership with Wellington-based Ohu Domes has allowed us to create an internationally recognised show that we are now able to share with other New Zealand planetariums and potentially sell around the world. Stardome is also the location of an internationally recognised research facility in which our volunteers utilise the telescopes on site to contribute to international studies and observations. And in the last year, we collated 400 hours of research data over 81 nights. The Stardome research program has contributed to the discovery of 22 exoplanets, which, as you may be aware, are planets in what is called in the so-called Goldilocks zone around the sun, meaning they have the potential to sustain life. In 2018, we are upgrading our large historic ZEISS telescope, which will allow our researchers remote access and will also provide a much-needed technology upgrade, allowing us to stream images from the telescope onto our website and into our displays area. What really excites the people of Auckland is when we are able to open our doors for astronomical events. This is when we really shine. In some years, there are no such astronomical events, but we are lucky that in 2018, we have a number of events, including the recent lunar eclipse, which saw close to 2,000 people visit Stardome over one evening. In July 2018, Mars will be closer to Earth than at any time since 2003 and for the next 17 years. From February through to September, the planet will be an incredibly bright, easy to observe object in the New Zealand sky. We will utilise this once-in-a-generation perihelic opposition to create a range of shows, programs and viewing events to inspire interest in astronomy and science among students and the general public. With 94% of our visitors coming from the Auckland region and with over 65% of our visitors being children, we are dedicated to supporting the Auckland Plan. Our long-standing residency at the Footamonga Kiakia gives us a unique connection to Maori culture and local iwi. Our current lease expires in 2025, and we are working closely with the Monga Authority to extend our lease beyond this date to give our organisation certainty about our location into the future. Regional Amenities Funding has underwritten the sustainability and financial stability of Stardome and has allowed for the provision of a world-class observatory and planetarium open to the public of Auckland 7 days a week. On behalf of Stardome and the Auckland Observatory and Planetarium Trust Board, I would therefore like to thank the Regional Amenities Funding Board and Auckland Council for your ongoing support. As a team, we are looking forward to the next 50 years and sharing our knowledge of space in ways that inspire, challenge and educate with the citizens of Auckland. Thank you. Mahalo.
Thank you, David. Questions, Councillor Casey.
I've got two questions, David. The first one is about the opportunities opened up by the Dark Sky Sanctuary in Great Barrier Island.
We have worked very closely with the people there, and the Auckland Astronomical Society have done so as well. We haven't really leveraged off that as much as we could, but that's something for the future.
It's on your radar. Good. My second question relates to a comment that you make in your report about other amenities being free to the people of Auckland, like the Art Gallery and not the Maritime Museum, like the Art Gallery and Auckland Museum, Maritime Museum, Auckland Art Gallery and the Navy Museum are free to Auckland citizens, whereas you charge between $10 and $15. You must have done the maths. What would it cost for the Stardome to be on an equal footing? In other words, the cost goes on to the visitors from outside of Auckland and overseas. What would it cost to be on a par with the other amenities?
Well, very few of our visitors, as I said, over 95% of our visitors are from Auckland, so we can kind of ignore international visitors in this equation. I think that our public programs income is about $300,000 a year. So if we were to go free, basically it would cost us around $300,000. That was ignoring education. So it'd be about $300,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Look, thank you very much, David. And ladies and gentlemen, to all the groups who've presented this morning, I think that we owe a great deal of gratitude for the work that they do for our region. The recommendations on the board I'd like to move. Do I have a seconder?
Second it.
Councillor Fletcher.
And in so doing, can I really acknowledge all of the presentations we've had today? All are dependent on volunteers and doing a great job in our community. So, yeah, just thank you.
Indeed, absolutely. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. Right, that takes us, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried, thank you. That takes